So what are some of your other concerns that brought you here? Because obviously a lot of people didn't come, so I assume people came who have concerns or want to know something. Yeah, so let's hear from you, please.
Actually, I primarily came to listen, but David, when you mentioned MOOCs as being one of the current trends taking off, educational technology is my field, so I pay attention to those things in particular. And I guess one of my thoughts is I'm interested in how we will be providing distance education, specifically online education, and I'm very interested in how we can and should be making sure that what we do in that regard is of high quality. And that's a difficult area to address. I don't know all the nuances involved, but I know that evaluating faculty performance as an online instructor is, a working conditions issue, and who owns the evaluations issue, and how should this best be done. And I mean, I have some opinions on that, but I'm interested in what is going to happen and how our contract will deal with related items.
Jan and I had a good conversation about that when he picked me up at the airport this morning. So we had another conversation.
I agree with that.
I know, I've taught online quite a bit too. I'm actually considered the online expert for the social science department, which means I'm in every single online class. And I get all those wonderful Malima announcements regularly. Although that's a good thing, because I can see what's going on. But that's definitely something that we have to address, because it is hard to measure workload. And then what happens when you've got the instructors who aren't teaching it properly, you know what I mean, that are sliding by, that aren't doing work, and
It's easier to go under the radar, I think, if you're not doing a high quality job and it's an online or distance experience. And how do we monitor and assist with that?
Yeah, because being in every single social science online class is a lot of work for me, and I'm not fitting. That's just, I'm, the expert in the department, and that's just,
And I guess one of my concerns is that it seems like the university doesn't want to engage in strategizing around online education. I hear concerns from faculty about things like, we don't want to be another University of Phoenix, which is fine.
yeah, I think
That's a real good thing.
Yeah, I'm really happy about
I took a
Sure.
job at University of Phoenix.
Absolutely.
Just to see what the dynamic was there and how they handled the cohort concept and online education.
But I guess my point is I don't hear enough conversations about what should our strategy be for an online presence. What should our online plans include? What do we want our areas of expertise to include? That doesn't seem to be happening enough, and it's kind of catch as catch can.
Maui College is trying very hard. Maui's generally been leading when it comes to technology, because we are the tri-bio college, right? And so we also have HANA, so we have all these outreach centers. We're expected to reach all these students, and so we've kind of always been on the top of the distance thing. And so right now our campus has a specific, it's an ad hoc Senate committee for distance learning, and they're trying to put together a faculty mentoring program, meaning you can't teach online for the first time if you haven't gone through training and have a mentor. They're trying to come up with some sort of system that students have to go through. So it's kind of like the equivalent of at the community colleges, the compass test, placing into English and math. Well, to be able to take an online class, you need to place and show us that you're proficient, because I've got students who are coming in going, well, I need a computer to be able to take an online class, and our students taking our cable classes who don't have televisions. I'm like, and how are you planning on, coming to class then if you aren't, and so certain things like that we're trying to work on, and we do want it to be a system-wide thing, because we have students from, all campuses. We always have statewide sections. So there's something there, but we need to grow it into something that is system-wide for it to be truly effective.
Right, and I'm with College of Education, so I've been here for 12 years, and that was my role, was to make sure that teacher preparation would be available on the neighbor islands. So that's what I've been working on for quite a long time, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of it. But I'm concerned without a more cohesive strategy from the Manoa level, or it sounds like what you described as a Senate action is a good start, and I'd be curious to hear more about
And we
how
have
they're
admin,
handling it.
our BCAA is on board, which is good. He's actually part of the listserv, and he's supportive. But, we've got concerns about how, they keep trying to increase, they keep adding online classes because they think it's cheap. You don't have to have classroom space and all this, but they don't increase the infrastructure. So our learning center, our testing centers don't have enough proctors, don't have enough computers. And they're not realizing that it isn't really all that cheap to maintain this property.
Well, speaking for the Luddites, I think it's very dangerous to go down the online path for a university like this, because we're not going to win in that fight. I think the essence of a university and what we offer is that human touch. And I think technology is great. There's aspects of it, but I was a researcher primarily for 25 years, and I had the same attitude. The technology was great, but it was there as a tool to help me. And when one starts to get enamored with the technology, and when administrators start to get enamored with it, exactly as Nani said, they start to think, well, gosh, this could be cheaper. We could have 10,000 students and one professor, and we just beam it out to them. And that goes through their minds. And from what I've seen, especially now that I've gone back to more teaching role, it's that personal contact that's important, and that's what we have to sell. And frankly, I'm just not enamored with online courses.
And I think that's okay, but I don't think it excuses us from having a distance strategy, because if we ignore it, we do that at our own peril. That is what students are coming in expecting in many cases, and it is the means to which we will reach audiences that will otherwise go somewhere else.
You may be right, but on the other hand, I think the danger is once you start going down that path, it will consume you. I see advantages even within my class. There are certain online YouTube videos and things that I will show on occasion that can present it much better than I can. But I think to do that exclusively, which in a sense to me really the online does become. And my son went to an online high school, and doesn't speak highly of it at all.
Well, just like our traditional teaching, I think there is a continuum
Yes,
from really poor
yes.
to really well done. And I'm happy to say one of my students nominated me for the Online Teaching Award this year from Manoa.
Oh, yeah,
so
no.
that's what I get to do next, is put a video together about my course. But I guess what you're raising a concern about is also my concern. I don't want to do online poorly. I want to have a strategy so that what we choose to do, we do very well. And lacking a strategy, we're left to do what you will. Robert, if you're interested, then go take some workshops and put it together and teach it any way you want, because that's what we're doing right now, to a large degree.
We have to be willing to invest. The MOOCs, yeah, I gather if you do them right, there's a production company, there are researchers, there's a
They're not cheap.
studio. Yeah, but if you want to do a fly-by-night, then it's just a talking head or something. So, are we going to be willing to do that? Are we going to be willing to, it's like TED Talks where they work with people beforehand, so they're able to communicate. Are we going to invest in that sort of thing?
I don't think online means poor quality, so we have to decide
Yeah.
what our strategy is.
But,
And I don't know that faculty have had a voice.
Tend to
really.
think it's cheaper.
Well, they
Yeah.
want, then they have to
Yeah.
be educated.
Yeah, well.
Because, we had the same problem at KCC with where the strategy was just grow classes online. And we don't have enough space in the testing center. We don't have enough computer facilities for students to come and deal with. And so we haven't thought 3 steps down the road to cohesively address the issue. It was just a cheap way to get more students into classes and build enrollment, and that was the only strategy. Do you agree with that, Aaron, since you're pretty much was it.
Well, yeah, the other thing too about those mocks and stuff like that, you know, if you look at the data, what is the pass rate on those? It's abysmal.
Yeah, I don't think the massive online are that much of a threat, and I don't think putting a talking head up is a threat, because I don't think that's gonna sell. You know, I think I'm not as worried about those. And I also, Glenn and I speak, because both of our children are doing online education. My son loves it, and he does a really good job. He'd love to talk to you about what the difference is, he's very analytic, between a well-presented course online and a poorly presented course online.
But is this something that the contract would be able to address, or is this something just kind of that one would work out
Well, I
by
think
department, or?
I think there are some tie-ins to the contract. I don't think.
There's some workload issues.
I don't necessarily
Workload,
think
yeah.
the strategy comes from UPA necessarily, but I think we need to be aware of it and perhaps have some input on what we want our distance strategy to look like. And you're exactly right. Too many people think this is going to be inexpensive. We have a group in College of Ed that we started about 6 years ago now that does on contract design of online courses for those units that want to do it. We've done several for CTAR and aquaponics and World of Insects and Health Sciences. And they've been a good partner of ours. But you know, when you look at involving instructional designers and media production and programmers and people who know what they're doing with the construction of the course, it's not inexpensive, but it can be strategic. And I'm interested, I guess, I bring it up here because of the union tie-ins. I'm interested in how do we evaluate online teaching and do that well, and how do we encourage professional development so that those that we support in online teaching are doing it well.
I think, you know, but some of this you mentioned about leadership, and I think
want the administration leading in any of these kind of things. It's better for you to lead and come up with a model that you think works than to have them lead anything. So I think with that said, the other problem one of my daughter ran into is that where is your home campus? She said 4 classes from 4 different campuses, and she couldn't get scholarships because you had to take the majority of your classes from one of the colleges. And so where is this seamless system called the University of Hawaii system? It's not seamless.
It's all different.
And there's really problems in this whole structure as we move into this area. I have 2 kids. One of them loves it. She works 7 days a week as a dental hygienist, and she goes to school full time. And I don't know how she does it. My son, who's like Mr. Sociable, hates it. He stays home all day taking 12 credits, and he just hates it. This is his first semester in school. He says, I'm never going to do this again. I don't know why my sister talked me into this. So, you know, again, it really depends. And my concern was that they need that human interaction. You know, he's taking Spanish. He hates it because he's got nobody to talk to. If he was in school, he would be talking to somebody, he'd be learning Spanish. The other area I think that's a real concern is that he said, oh, my friend's going to help me do all my homework. Okay, so what is this cheating thing going on? Okay, who's doing the homework? I think it's important to have the interaction. The teacher will meet with these guys. You know, my daughter drives from Kona to Hilo. I don't know if it was every other week to meet with the teachers, sit down, go over stuff, which I think is a great idea. But I think the model needs to come from the teachers. It needs to come from us and not from anybody else. And hopefully the model that we come up is going to be better than the administration ever comes up with.
You're talking about the model of an individual class or the model of a program? 'Cause
Program.
It's the program
Program.
level that I'm
Yeah.
concerned with.
Program.
We can-
Standards.
I mean, Manoa is starting the online teaching award this year. It's a pilot effort. I know Leeward's been doing something similar for several years now, which I think is laudable, but you could pick out instruction from the people who are nominated and see models of good courses, but the program design and the program development, the selection of the program is an issue, the design of the program is an issue, the funding of the program and the development of the online components are all issues that aren't in faculty hands.
I got a question while you had said something about a bunch of different groups coming together and producing these online courses. That sounds like it's a standalone course. You don't necessarily need an instructor to, I mean, you need need someone to run it, but you don't necessarily need that to be instructor.
Oh,
So the
absolutely,
course,
you
the
need an
question
instructor.
is, who owns that material now?
That's a good question. So
Who
what,
owns that material? If the department owns the material, then they can run that course without a faculty.
not really.
No.
But.
They might try to, though.
But
They
that
might
is,
try
that's a
to.
good point because it.
Contract, right? So the intellectual property, the copyright of material you develop for a course is addressed by the contract. So typically, my group is the Distance Course Design and Consulting Group. You can look at us online, dcdcgroup.org. What we typically do is assign a small team to work with a faculty member who's the subject matter expert. So they work intensively together for a whole semester or sometimes more to get one course ready. The funding for that development process isn't coming from the instructor or the subject matter expert. It's coming from a dean who wants to invest in it. It's coming sometimes from system has contracted us to do some design work. Sometimes it's grants, whatever. But that is a very salient question: who owns the materials that are developed there? So what we have tended to do is, in an MOA format, is to say, you, the subject matter expert, are agreeing that this is going to be a work for hire. We insist that they get paid for it somehow, whether it's course release or overload or however the administration wants to handle that. And then in the same MOA, the person footing the bill turns around and says, we agree to license this back to you to use any way you want to. So if we engage David as a subject matter expert on a course design and there's another qualified faculty member who could teach it, they're able to use that, but David could also continue to use it. But the point that I disagree with you on is that you don't need a faculty member at that point, because the interaction with the students, the facilitation of the learning experience, the collection of feedback and adjusting the course direction and responding to assignments and assessments, that's not robotized. You have to have a good facilitator that's qualified in the area to do that.
I mean, certainly we would all agree with that. However, the administration in its campaign to save money and get rid of faculty may think otherwise.
Temporary faculty.
Teaching assistants. Teaching, I've got friends, I have a postdoc friend who's teaching a full-time class and making, it's several things.
Well, that's part of the whole compensation.
I haven't really witnessed that extreme. I've witnessed a few administrators that I won't name that think, once we design this, you can put 100 students in there instead of 25, and we disillusion them of that as soon as we can. But, the design of some courses might lend themselves to have 100 students in there, just like we have 100 students in a lecture hall sometimes. But that's not the same issue as do or don't we do online, and how do we choose our strategy.
I think the point though is that when you do online, if you follow that path of lecturers or people that are not fully invested, you run the risk of devaluing the online experience. And obviously that's not your intent. Your intent is to have it as good as anything that we have. But the reality is that I think it's much easier for that online to go down, to deteriorate very quickly if you have administrators who are not fully committed to these values that we have.
But that's the difference. It's not about the online versus not online. Because you can make the same argument about putting somebody in a lecture hall.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that it's happening right now to the university in many respects. But what I fear is that, you become the University of Phoenix very quickly with the online.
So you're saying, how do we prevent this need a strategy to?
That's the bottom line. We need a strategy. I don't think anybody at the table wants to become a University of Phoenix or a diploma mill or a low-quality online provider. The question is, how do we steer this strategically? How do we do it well? How do we ensure quality online instruction? Because that's not as easy to observe as it is when I just wander past your classroom and watch you in action.
I think that's a key too, that you have to have the faculty in an environment. What I've seen with some of the online classes, some of the faculty in my department, they teach online, so they're home all day. They're not around. And so you lose that interaction amongst faculty. And so that would be one thing, is an insistence that it's, from the faculty standpoint, it doesn't make their lives more convenient because they can, they don't have to get up in the morning, they can stay in their bedroom and teach. But that you maintain the institution and the departments, and you simply use the online as a tool to reach perhaps a group that you normally can't reach.
I hate to be cynical, but I am. And I think that we're being naive when we think that any of that is of any concern to the administration. Bottom line is bottom line, and how much they're getting paid, and making a name for themselves with their big flashy project before they move on to the next university. All of that comes much higher priority than actual teaching.
Which kind of brings us back to the whole kind of point of this faculty thought leadership series. When you get to log into IdeaScale, you'll see that the #1 ranked statement so far was Sharon's from last summer, which was take back control of our profession. And I think that's,
How do you get the reins out of the hands of the dean panels?
I think, you don't know very well. But I think, one of the, I want to speak to Bob just briefly. I think there's a similar dynamic of isolation that's going on that's different from when I started within departments. It just comes with the extraordinary growth in the kind of work we've done. And when I started, that was taught. And now with assessment and there's whole layers of work that, one, I wasn't ever trained to do. B, I do not want to do. I'm not good at it. I don't do it joyfully. That's taking time away from my teaching and from keeping up with my profession. And I think that workload burden on all of us isolates us even on campus. There's not that kind of department feel or even campus feel, even though Manoa was always kind of difficult because Manoa was always very commuter college.
I've been at the university for about 23 years now, and every year it's been one cage rattling after another, from some bright star in the administration who came up with a good idea, or, oh, we're going to have a sustainability institute, oh, we're going to have this institute, we're going to have that institute. Write a plan. So I spend a lot of time writing plans, and they say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm out of here. And the workload is increased. I'm not a teaching faculty, I'm not instructional, but I watch what they've been loading on those guys, and I think, oh my God, I'm glad I'm not one of them. And it's just, every time somebody gets a hiccup up in I don't know where, the administration, it's like, did they add something else to what you're supposed to be doing? And now you're also, in addition to everything else, you're supposed to be writing grant proposals for $500,000 every week. And when you're writing those, when are you supposed to do all the other stuff? When are you supposed to actually do the work if you get one?
I was wondering if you could use workload and intellectual property, and then use those to figure out sort of the faculty would derive what are the rules for what would be acceptable to us. And with some sort of intellectual property thing, if you don't use it at this standard, you can't use it. And these are the things, the resources you need to actually do it right. You do it if you're not, if you don't do those, you don't get to do it or something. Because I'm thinking about this and I'm getting terrified. I was just thinking, if you get virtual reality sort of things, and in some ways it's neat, but you could be a dolphin in the sea, and with enough programming you could actually do some interesting things in different places. But we would end up being game designers and providing
Right.
content for video games, which might be the best way to educate my son, right? But
There's a whole strand of research on gamification of learning.
so you're right that where would faculty fit in, and do we want to wait and react, or is it possible to figure out the way before it becomes issue?
It's so funny thinking about what our leverage points are. We were interviewing candidates for extension director, and one of them said, "In the future, you will all be bloggers," and that's the extent of the job.
So what are some of the other concerns?
Some of it just totally.